Good evening, everyone. We start with today's session. Sorry for the delay. There was a computer glitch. So we'll start with 2012 session. Good evening, Shweta. Paper. The first question is, in the areas of covered under the Panchayat extension to the Scheduled Act 1996, what is the role of Gram Sabha? So the first thing that you have to learn is about the Gram Sabha and also the PISA Act and the related schedules, articles, and the constitutional amendment that are related to this. And also they have talked about the minor forest produce. So you have to learn about what are the minor forest produce, what are the major forest produce, what is the scheduled area, and who gives the license for mining in these scheduled areas. And you also have to learn about the mining licenses and the mining related acts. So this is about the first question. So you have to read about Panchayat Extension PISA Act, schedules and articles and the constitutional amendments, and also about the scheduled areas. What is scheduled area and what are the schedules in the constitution that are related to scheduled areas, and then major and minor forest produce, and then about the licenses, who gives the license for mining in the scheduled areas, and also about general mining aspects. And then the second question, in the Parliament of India, the purpose of an adjournment motion. So you have to learn about adjournment motion, and also there are different types of motion. That is cut motion, guillotine, and all those motions that you have to read. That is there in the Parliament chapter of Lakshmikant. So read that thoroughly and read about all the motions that are there. The third question is about the biodiversity. I have already discussed so many times in the discussion of 2011 paper also. Biodiversity is very important, and you have to learn about the organizations that are there protecting the biodiversity, any international efforts that are there to protect biodiversity, what is biodiversity, and the distribution of biodiversity across distribution, the world distribution, like which area of the world is highly diverse, biodiverse, and also which type of ecosystems are highly diverse, biodiverse. So you have to read about that. In this case, that given about biodiversity, National Biodiversity Authority. We read about that also, don't forget that. And they are talking about here the research on genetic modification of crop plants. So you have to see what are the current research that are going on, and what are the allowed genetically modified plants that are allowed in India, and also who are the authorities. The authorities that are who are responsible for these genetically modified plants and animals, and also the intellectual property rights related to genetic or biological resources cannot be made without the approval of NBA. So you have to learn about the functions of NBA, and also the process of how to apply and who is the responsible authority, and what is the ministry under which it comes. The fourth question is National Green Tribunal Act 2010. So you have to learn about the NGT, National Green Tribunal, and you have to learn where are the offices, where is the, in which cities are it set up, and what are its functions. So here they are saying the NGT Act was enacted in consonance with the following provisions of the Constitution. It is right to healthy environment construed as a part of right to life under Article 21. So again, this can also be an a question where they can ask you the right to healthy environment or right to healthy living can be construed under which article of the Constitution. So this can itself become a question. Then the second option is provisions of grants for raising the level of administration in the scheduled areas for the welfare of scheduled tribes under Article 275. So you have to learn about the important articles in the Constitution, and also you have to learn about different, for example, here they have talked about scheduled areas, scheduled tribes. So you have to learn about the different aspects of the Constitution where these things are covered. Then there is, they are talking about Gram Sabha and the powers of Gram Sabha, and also about Article 273. Gram Sabha is already asked here, and it is again repeating in the same paper regarding Gram Sabha. So I hope you get what I am telling. We'll move to the next question then. Fifth question, National Water Mission if national water mission is properly and completely implemented, how will it impact the country? So you have to learn about the purpose of the mission. The purpose of the mission and what are the features of that mission. Purpose and features and the intended beneficiaries, if there is any scheme. And in this case, you have to also search about other missions. Just Google search national missions in the search bar. And if you put national missions in India, you would get other missions like Digital India Mission, Atal Innovation Mission, National Urban Livelihood Mission, National Rural Livelihood Mission. So learn about all this and Swachh Bharat Mission. So these missions are important. All the national missions are important. And in the options, they have said means part of the water needs of the urban will be met through recycling of wastewater. So you have to learn about how the recycling of wastewater is done and what are the technologies involved. And also in the second option, they have told the appropriate technologies that allow for the use of ocean water. If you come across any technologies to reclaim the ocean water and for drinking purposes or for normal use, that becomes important. And also about here, they have talked about all rivers of the Himalayan origin will be linked to the rivers of peninsular India. So river linking also will become important. So these are what the things that you have to take away from this question number 5. Then we'll see question number 6. Consider the following provisions under DPSP of State Directive Principle of State Policy as enshrined in the Constitution. They have given certain DPSPs and they have asked which of the above are the Gandhian principles that are reflected in the Directive Principles of State Policy. So these DPSPs are segregated or subcategorized into 3 different ways. One is Gandhian principles, then socialistic principles, and then liberal or intellectual principles. So you have to learn this and by heart all this. So whenever you are reading Lakshmikant, you have to by heart the DPSP, fundamental rights, fundamental duties, preamble, constitutional amendments, all the important articles. And then normally what they ask is, if they'll give you, that question is asked in the head. First we'll go to the next question then. Consider the following statements. Union territories are not represented in the Rajya Sabha. It is within the purview of the Chief Election Commissioner to adjudicate the election disputes. According to the Constitution of India, the Parliament consists of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha only. So here it's about the basics of polity, and also you have to learn about the Union territories, the Rajya Sabha, powers of Rajya Sabha, special powers of Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha versus Rajya Sabha, and then the powers of the Election Commissioner and what is its responsibilities, how the election symbols is allocated, how the national party and national party is declared, and how who is responsible for the state election, and what is the difference between Union Election Commission and State Election Commission. I hope this is clear, and we'll move to the next question. In the meanwhile, if you have any doubts, you can post it in the chat section. The 8th question, with reference to consumer rights, privileges under the provisions of law in India, which of the following are correct? Consumers are not all the articles, Beetle, it's only the important articles. So with reference to consumer rights or privileges under the provisions of law in India, which of the following statements are correct? So consumers are empowered to take samples of food testing. When a consumer files a complaint in any consumer forum, no fee is required to be paid. In case of death of a consumer, his or her legal heir can come and file a complaint in the consumer forum on her behalf. So here the important thing is about consumer rights. The Department of Consumer Affairs, that is Ministry of Consumer Affairs and Food and Public Distribution, is looking after this. And there is Consumer Protection Act 2019. So you have to go through this act and also the provisions. If you go through the consumer rights in this website, Department of Consumer Affairs, you have certain consumer rights that is given in the website. Go through those things. And also there is this Consumer Protection Division under the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution. Go through the features and go through the powers that consumer has, and also about this Consumer Protection Act that was passed in 2019. This becomes important. Then the 9th question regarding the office of Lok Sabha Speaker. Now we have to learn about the Lok Sabha speakers. There is speaker chapter. Then all these provisions are given there, details. You should also learn about the powers of president and the president chapter, and also that you have to search. I mean, I'm not going to tell you the answers here, but I'm just giving you the directions. So you have to learn about the deputy speaker also. Learn about the deputy speakers, the elections of the speakers, who will give the resignation to whom, and the role of the president. And also you have to learn about the powers of the president. This is about the 9th question. We'll go to the 10th question. Which of the following are included in the original jurisdictions of the Supreme Court? Supreme Court chapter is very important. There is the original jurisdiction of Supreme Court. Then you have to also learn about the original jurisdictions of the High Court also. And what are the powers of the Supreme Court? Articles related to the Supreme Court, special powers that any Supreme Court has. You have to read all that. And it has already been asked. What are the powers of Supreme Court? What is the original jurisdictions of the Supreme Court? And what are the provisions to ensure the independence of Supreme Court? Provisions in the Constitution and also any laws that have been passed. So these are the original, I mean, they are given some 4 options and you have to select the original jurisdictions. So read about the Supreme Court chapter, High Court chapter, and also the original jurisdictions, articles related to the Supreme Court, High Court, and the exclusive powers of the Supreme Court, and also the provisions to ensure the independence of Supreme Court. Next is question number 11th. Consider the following kinds of organisms: bacteria, fungi, and flowering plants. Some species of which of the above kinds of organisms are employed as biopesticides. Biopesticides, for example, if there are flowering plants which can be used as biopesticides, you have to know at least 1 or 2 kinds of flowering plants, and what is the regulation related to the allowing of biopesticides, and the pros and cons of using biopesticides. There is not only pros, there are also cons of it. Read, Google search this and read. And how do they work? How do the biopesticide work in controlling the pests? That also, how aspect is also important. Biopesticides are important, biofuels are important. Anything related with the renewable energy or ecological solution to any problem is important. Any problem it is there in the world, and if you have an ecological or natural way to solve that problem, all that kind of things are important for prelims. I hope this is clear. We'll move to the next question. Biomass gasification is considered to be one of the sustainable solutions to the power crisis in India. In this context, which of the following are correct? So yesterday we read about sustainable sources when we were reading about biofuels. So here sustainable energy sources, solutions to the power is also given. So biogas, see again there is a sustainable source and a natural source to the problems that India has or the world has. So you have to read about this biomass gasification. There is coal gasification also. Something called coal gasification, syngas. So you have to read all that. And when you have biogasification, you have to read coal gasification. You have to read what is syngas, what are the constituents of syngas, and what are the properties of syngas. And then the 13th is, what is the role of the UV ray in water purification? So yesterday I discussed that electromagnetic spectrum is important. So here there is a direct question regarding the UV rays, ultraviolet radiations in water purification. And you have to go through those electromagnetic spectrum, like the rays like X-rays, gamma rays, and their uses. Here that use is asked here in water purification. So we already discussed here, there was this reuse of water. Where was that? Yes, here, recycling of wastewater and appropriate technologies that allow for the use of ocean water. So here again, this is the technology for water purification. So if you have a natural way of cleaning water, that also becomes important. So here they are giving how it is working, the how part, how it is useful and how does it kill the organisms. So please read about the other areas of this electromagnetic spectrum, X-rays, gamma rays, infrared rays and all, and also the uses of it. Next is graphene. Graphene is frequently in use. What is its importance? Again, graphene and carbon allotropes are important. And you have to read in detail about graphene and why it is used and what are the purposes and how it is special. And you also have to learn about the difference between graphene and diamond. So they may ask this because anything which is very similar and which varies very slightly, they can ask a question. Differences question they have already asked so many times in UPSC Prelims. And here they have talked about silicon, read about silicon, the uses of silicon, and also display technologies. Again, there was a question in the 2011 where they asked the difference between LCDs and LEDs. Here they can ask you what is OLEDs, any new technologies, display technologies that are there, and they can ask you about the differences, how the OLEDs are different from normal LEDs. So read about these new technologies and the difference between their alternatives. Then lead poisoning. So this is a question about lead poisoning, and they've asked about the sources of lead poisoning. Recently, there was a roundtable conference that was held in Delhi about lead poisoning, and it is affecting children. So lead poisoning also is important. Read the sources of lead poisoning and the international steps that are taken and the national steps that are taken. International and national steps that are taken to reduce lead poisoning. For example, unleaded petrol is being supplied in the petrol stations, petrol bunks. So we have to learn about what is lead poisoning, what are the sources of it, what are the effects, how it is affecting children, like what are the health effects on the children, and then what are the steps that the government is taking to prevent this poisoning. Because mostly children's, the next generation is getting affected by this. So this is very, very important these days. And recently there was 1 week back, there was a roundtable conference that happened. So lead poisoning is an international issue. It's not just restricted to India. So read about lead poisoning. And if there is any kind of poisoning that the children are getting affected, read about that also. For example, there is an issue of drinking water contamination. So even that is a kind of poisoning. Drinking water pollution, is there. There was a news regarding uranium, content of uranium in drinking water. So read about that. The next question is with reference to stem cells frequently in the news, which of the following statements are correct? So you have to read about the stem cells and the kind of stem cells and how they are useful to humans. And also any new medical technologies that are in the news that can be beneficial to, for example, if there is any method which can solve cancer, TB, other deadly diseases, which currently doesn't have HIV, currently doesn't have any cure, that becomes important. So new medical technologies, stem cell therapy, and also any kind of the different kinds of stem cells. Then 17th question, consider the following chlorofluorocarbons known as ozone depleting substances are used. So 2011 we had a question regarding ozone hole. Here we have CFCs. So ozone is important, ozone hole, global warming, Indian efforts to contain this ozone hole, and also international efforts, and also other chemicals that are responsible for ozone hole creation, and also other chemicals like HFCs. Here they are saying how they are used. Chlorofluorocarbons are used where, what are the sources of chlorofluorocarbons? And similarly, there was in the previous question they asked the sources of lead poisoning. So you have to learn about the sources and the measures that they have taken. The next question, 18th question, a team of scientists at Brookhaven National Laboratory, including those from India, created the heaviest antimatter, that is anti-helium nucleus. What are the implications of the creation of antimatter? So you have to learn about the antimatter. if there is any new technology, for example, you have to learn about the difference between matter and antimatter, the key differences between matter and antimatter. You can also learn about gravitational waves. And if there are any new technologies, discoveries, or inventions, you have to learn their implications on us. So here they're asking the key sentence is, what are the implications of the creation of antimatter? So if there is a new technology, you have to learn about the implications of it, how it would benefit humans. So, and also the difference between the closely related matters. So matter and antimatter are two different closely related aspects. And then you also have to learn about the evolution of universe. There are questions that have been asked here, and I'll also demonstrate how they have asked the evolution part. And what are the uses of these antimatter? For example, if they have found out something, if they have invented something, and if there is a new technology, what are the uses of it and how it is beneficial, and in exactly how, in which way, that you have to find out and remember. Next, which of the following are cited by the scientist as evidence of the continued expansion of universe? Again, with this question, evolution of universe, and then evidence for this evolution of the universe, how it has expanded and what are the proofs for that. So you have to read about the evolution of universe, not just universe, evolution of life, evolution of physical, for example, geographical features like mountains, oceans, continents, and what are the proofs for that. And that has been asked. And here they have talked about what are the evidences for the expansion of universe, detection of microwaves, observation of redshift phenomenon in space, movement of asteroids and comets. Differences was asked in 2011. So again, there is asteroids here and occurrences of supernova explosions. So you have to read about, see, again, this is an electromagnetic spectrum thing. Then there is this observation of redshift phenomena. You have to learn what is redshift phenomena and what is the importance of the observation of microwaves in space, microwaves or radio waves, if there is any. And then movement of asteroids. Where is the asteroid belt in the solar system? And occurrence of supernova. What is a supernova? And you have to learn about the stages of a star, life stages of star, and also the evolution of universe, and also other evolution of life and other, like mountains, etc., of our continents. Evolution of everything is important. Next question is question 20. Electrically charged particles from space traveling at the speeds of several hundred kilometers can severely harm living beings if they reach the surface of Earth. What prevents them from reaching the surface of Earth? As we previously discussed in 2011 paper, atmosphere and layers of atmosphere is important, and the functions of these layers of atmosphere. This is very important. Learn about all the layers of atmosphere. In this question, they have asked about the ionosphere. Ionosphere itself is very unique. Go and read about the properties of ionosphere and the characteristics. So read about ionosphere and also other layers of atmosphere. They've also asked about why flights in 2011. There was a question about layers of atmosphere. So atmosphere and layers of atmosphere is very important. Next question is, with reference to the scientific progress of ancient India, which of the following statements given below are correct? Different kinds of specialized surgical instruments were in common use by 1st century AD, and transplantation of internal organs in the human body had begun by 3rd century. The concept of an angle was known in 5th century AD, and the concept of cyclical quadrilaterals was known in 7th century AD. So regarding history, you have to read about science in history, the books which are related with history, and the people which are related. For example, in this case, Sushruta was related with surgery. Varahamihira also was related with mathematics. So you have to read about the people and the books and which are related with the science and technology in history, ancient history. So this is important aspect. So whenever you are reading ancient history, give importance to the science aspect and various books or the people who are involved with science and scientific progress. So this word is important, scientific progress. Next question is 22nd. So with reference to the history of ancient India, which of the following were common to the Buddhism and Jainism? Again, philosophy question. Last time they asked about the Jain philosophy. I had told you to read about the other philosophies, the Vedic philosophies and the 6 Vedic philosophies and 5 heterodox philosophies. So here they are asking about the commonalities between Buddhism and Jainism. So read about other philosophies also, and also give importance to Buddhism and Jainism. There will always be a question regarding this. And these things are, if you go through the philosophies, you will understand about what they were primarily. And also, whenever you are reading Buddhism and Jainism, if you have prominent rulers, you have to know whether they supported Buddhism or they were against Buddhism or Jainism. Like which rulers supported it and which rulers were against this. Then 23rd question: which of the following can be said to be essentially the parts of inclusive governance? So inclusive governance, in 2011 there was inclusive growth. I'll just show you that. See, there was a question regarding inclusive growth. In 2012, they have asked inclusive governance. So whatever inclusive is important. Inclusive growth and inclusive governance. And how to ensure inclusive governance or how to ensure inclusive growth. Here I had asked you to read about self-help groups, MSMEs, and the right to education part. Here they have said again NBFCs and district planning committee was already asked in 2011. This district planning committee and the constitutional amendment 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments are important, and also any government scheme for public health and also midday meal scheme. So read these things, read about NBFCs and what are the functions of NBFCs and what are the regulations for the NBFCs and what are the restrictions that are there for NBFCs. So please read about this. Please read about what is inclusive governance and read conceptually. And the steps that the government is taking to allow everyone to participate in the government. Next is 24th, temple architectures. Nagara, Dravida and Vaisara are what? So again, you have to learn about temple architecture, attend architecture syllabus, and also evolution of temple architecture. Again, the evolution word is important. They have asked about the evolution of universe, evolution of mountains, evolution of rivers, evolution of continents, now evolution of temple architecture. So read about this. Again, you can take hints from the options also. They have given the racial groups of Indian subcontinent. Read about the racial groups and their distribution in India. There was a question about the tribes, the racial groups of tribes that are there in Andaman and Nicobar. This is already a UPSC Prelims question. So read about the racial groups. Main linguistic divisions of India, read about that. And then there are these temple architecture. Again, anyway, you have to read this. Then musical gharanas. This also has been asked. I think this question is there in this exam. I mean, 2012 itself. So read about gharanas, read about Indian temple architecture, read about the main linguistic divisions in India and the constitutional provisions of any language, minority languages, and any schedules that are there in the constitution that are related to the languages. And then racial groups and their distribution in Indian subcontinent. And then 25th question. The Congress ministries resigned in 1939. This is a modern history question. And this is, if anything important has happened, important events or a turning point that you have to remember. Important turning points in the history. So read this. This you can read from the static books. We'll move to the next question. 26th. Here they have asked about National Rural Health Mission. So I've already discussed that you have national missions are very important. Just Google search national missions. There are at least more than 10 national missions there. So read about those national missions. And then here they have asked about ASHA workers. So read about the ASHA workers. What are their responsibilities of ASHA workers. So this is about National Rural Health Mission. So you have to read other missions also, which are there, national missions. You just Google search, you will get in the ministry's website itself, what are the missions that are there in India and what are its purpose and the intended beneficiaries also. And 27th question is, what are the features of the Government of India Act 1919? So every act or acts that were passed by the British government are important. And also here we have to learn about what is diarchy, then what the growth of the evolution of communal electorates, then the devolution of legislative authority. So devolution word is important. Devolution of finances, devolution of power. Even in the modern India, modern world, today's current in India, devolution is important. So go through this devolution part. So Finance Commission and also the devolution of powers among, to the panchayats. Read all that. 73rd and 74th Amendment. Devolution, communal electorates and diarchy, and this acts. Then we'll move to 28th question. During Indian freedom struggle, National Social Conference was formed. What was the reason for that formation? So National Social Conference you have to study, and other conferences if there were there, you have to read about that. And reason for anything's formation. If, for example, somebody has created something, you have to read the reason for it, the purpose. What was the exact purpose, why they were formed. So read about National Conference, who were the leaders, who were the participants, all the leaders who are involved with National Social Conference. Then in this option they have given Bayramji Malabari and M.G. Ranade. So important personalities and their contributions also are a part of syllabus. So read about these people and their contributions, and if they have written any books or published any magazines or newspapers, read about them. Bayramji Malabari and M.G. Ranade. Next question is 29th. Which of the following parties are established by B.R. Ambedkar? So Dr. Ambedkar is very important, just like Mahatma Gandhi ji. You have to read about, you have to do an extensive research on these two people, B.R. Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi ji. And what are the things that you have to remember is the books that they have written. For example, Ambedkar was responsible for the RBI. So if you go and read the Wikipedia page of Dr. Ambedkar, you would learn a lot of things. The political parties, for example, in Dr. Ambedkar's case, you have to read about the thesis that he had written for his PhD, the political parties, the organizations which he was a part of, and if he has written any books or newspapers or magazines that he was involved in. So read about B.R. Ambedkar extensively, and also Mahatma Gandhi. Then the next question is 30. See, again, I had already discussed that Lok Sabha versus Rajya Sabha is important, and Rajya Sabha is important again. What are the special powers of the Rajya Sabha? They have asked what is the special powers of Rajya Sabha. This is there in the Lakshmikant itself. Read about Rajya Sabha, what are the powers of Rajya Sabha versus Lok Sabha, and the representations, elections to the Rajya Sabha. Everything about Rajya Sabha. Don't leave anything of Rajya Sabha. And then the 31st question, see again, mission question is asked, National Rural Livelihood Mission. How does the National Rural Livelihood Mission seeks to improve the livelihood options of the rural poor? How part is important. How does something or a mission is trying to do something, trying to solve the solution problems? How is it solving the problems? Or for example, how is it causing problems? How is it a solution? How part is very important. Again, they have asked about self-help groups. And then again, read about this National Rural Livelihood Mission and what are the features, purposes, and the intended beneficiaries of this mission. Then the next question is 32nd. Multidimensional Poverty Index developed by Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative with UNDP support covers which of the following? So again, this is about this index. Read about UNDP, what are its functions. If there are any reports related to UNDP, read about that. And here they have asked about Multidimensional Poverty Index. Read about poverty. What kind of, what are the poverty line? What is poverty line, and what are the steps that Indian government is taking to reduce poverty? So again, they have talked about deprivation of education, health, assets, services at household level, purchasing power parity at national level, extent of budget deficit, and GDP growth rate. GDP growth rate was asked in 2011, and they talked about the 5-year growth trend. So currently, you have to see the growth trend of the GDP last 5 years, whether it is increasing, decreasing at a uniform rate, and the per capita income. Per capita income was also asked in 2011. 33rd question, which of the following are among the noticeable features of the recommendations of the 13th Finance Commission? Currently, the 14th Finance Commission recommendation also already is done. Currently, there is 15th Finance Commission. Read about that. Read about the recommendation of the 14th Finance Commission. Read about finance commissions. And now with this options they are given GST. Read about goods and services tax, features of it, and read everything about GST and GST Council, what is GST, and other features. Again, they had talked about in 2011 there was a question on demographic dividend. Again, here there is the word demographic dividend. Learn about what is demographic dividend, and then again we have talked about devolution. So devolution of money and the power, both are important. And what are the features? I mean, what are the provisions that are there in the Constitution for devolution from the center to the state? That is important. Center to states. Read this. Center-state relations. Then 34th question. What is or are the recent policy initiatives of the government of India to promote the growth of manufacturing sector? So what are so if you come across any initiatives to promote something by the government, that is important. For example, there was this ease of doing business, and government had taken many steps to improve ease of doing business. Read those things. And if they are trying to promote food processing, they have concentrated on mega food parks. This was asked in 2011. So again, here they have talked about national investment and manufacturing zones. Learn about what is this, what is single window clearance, then this fund, technology acquisition and development fund. Read about these features here. And this may be important for the future, I mean, this prelims. Next question is, which of the following are the methods of parliamentary control over public finance? Again, devolution, public finance, public money is important. Again, the parliamentary control. Here above, again, you have to worry about the withdrawals. What are the bills? Who is the authority? They are talking about annual financial statement. At least go through the annual financial statements. What are the line items in the income statement and the balance sheet? And also how the withdrawals of the money is done. Appropriation bill, money bill, all that, and this vote on account and motions that are there. So parliament chapter and budget is important. And read about this year's budget if they have started any new steps, and read that. That is important. So again, introducing finance bill, all kinds of bill, money. What is the difference between normal bill and money bill, and the constitutional controls that are there, parliamentary controls over public finance. This is about polity. 36th question is again about Mahatma Gandhiji. He undertook fast unto death in 1932. Why? Because again, the reason, whatever, if Mahatma Gandhi has taken any step in the history, you have to know the reason why. For example, here they have talked about roundtable conferences. So again, in 2011, they talked about roundtable conference. You have to at least go through the participants of any important participants of the roundtable conference. And then there was this Ramsay MacDonald announced the communal award. So read about communal award, read about this person, Ramsay MacDonald. Next question is 37th. With reference to Rayatwari settlement system, they have asked the following statements, and which of them is true or correct. Again, I have, as previously discussed, land revenue systems of the British government is important. Read all the types of land revenue system and its features. And who was responsible, the Governor General and the Viceroy who were involved in it. So what is Rayatwari system, what is Mahalwari system, all that you have to learn. And the details of it. Next 38th question is, what is, again, demographic dividend, demographic transition. They've asked about what is demographic transition. Read about that, which is associated with economic development. You have to learn about what is economic development, what is demographic transition, and in which stage, and how this thing is evolved, evolution of this demographic transition. Again, this is also an evolution. The 39th question. In India, in the overall index of industrial production, the indices of 8 core industries have combined weight of 37.9. Which of the following are the 8 core industries? So this 8 core industries doesn't constitute the 100% of the index. It constitutes only around 40% of it. So you have to learn what are the 8 core industries and also the weights of it. Read about industrial IPP, index of industrial production, the ministries or the departments, ministries and the departments that are involved in publishing this index. Then 40th question, again, it's what are which of the following provisions of the Constitution of India have a bearing on education? Again, you have to You have to by heart the DPSP's schedules of the Constitution, and here they have told about which of the following have a bearing on education. They can remove this word and they can give that which of them have the bearing on Divyangs or handicapped persons or children or any other sections of the society. Or it can be like animals. They can just write what are the provisions which has a bearing on animals or employment, etc. So for that, you have to know these things by heart. What are the schedules? Which schedule is related to which one? How many schedules are there? What are the articles? What is the DP? What are the DPSPs? All DPSPs you have to by heart. Fundamental rights, fundamental duties, preamble, amendments, and articles. I hope this is clear. We'll move to the next question. Government of India encourages the cultivation of C. buckthorn. What is the importance of this plant? See, last year, 2011, they asked about oil zapper. So if you come across anything here of controlling pollution or helping solve a problem, a natural way of solving a problem, so that becomes important. So, and here they have talked about biodiesel. So biofuel and biodiesel is very important. If there are any plants or which are used to create biodiesels, plants or crops that are used to create biodiesels, read about that. Biodiesel is very important. And here they've asked about this cultivation of this plant, C. buckthorn. Read about that and read about any other plants that are useful to humans. Then 42nd, which of the following is the chief characteristics of mixed farming? So you have to read about the types of farming and what are the characteristics of those farming methods and what are the pros and cons of that farming method. Mixed farming and other types of farming are also there. Then 43rd question. A particular state in India has the following characteristics. This type of question has already been asked. They'll give you characteristics and then they'll find out, they'll ask you, guess the state. For example, they can ask you to guess the place, guess the state, guess the animal, guess the country. So they have given the conditions, characteristics of a particular state, and they have asked which is the state. This is important. You have to learn about the characteristics of all the states of India. All the states. At least the rough idea of where that stands. For example, in this case, they have said that that's located on the same latitude which passes through the northern Rajasthan. So we have to by heart. We have to remember the map and the states and exact location of the states. So draw the map and draw the states and the neighboring states that the states. How many states how many states have international borders? How many states are bordering? What are the other states that they are bordering? All this that you have to learn, and also the forest cover. They have talked about the forest cover. Read the latest state of forest report. Then again here, consider the following crops of India: cowpea, green gram, pigeon pea. Which of the following are used as a pulse fodder and green manure? Again, this is a solution to a problem and natural solution to a problem. Green manure, because of fertilizers, the soil is getting degraded. So this is a natural solution to a problem. And you have to read about all the natural solutions. So read about these individual crops and the conditions in which they can grow and the benefits of it. So just Google search what is green manure and learn about green manure. Then 45th question. Consider the following factors: rotation of the earth, air pressure and wind, density of ocean water, revolution of earth. Which of the following factors influence the ocean currents? So read about ocean currents and the factors that influence the ocean currents, type of ocean currents, that is cold or warm ocean currents, distribution of these ocean currents in the world map, and then the effects of these ocean currents. For example, some ocean currents affect has caused deserts or arid conditions near the place where it flows. So read about the different types of ocean currents that is there in the atlas and also geography textbook. Then 46th question. With reference to wetlands, consider the following statements. The country's total geographical area under category of wetlands is recorded more in Gujarat as compared to other states. In India, total geographical area of coastal wetlands is larger than that of inland wetlands. So you have to learn what is a wetland, what is the definition of a wetland, what are the Ramsar sites, what is the benefits of the wetland. For example, they have asked about the benefits, how mangroves acts as a benefit the coastal ecosystem. So again, wetlands can also be how wetlands can be a benefit to humans. That you have to read, and the steps that the government is taking to measure that they have taken to preserve these wetlands, and that measure can be national and international measures. Read both of them and read Ramsar sites, and then read about the distribution of this wetland. Like for example, at least the top 3 states with the highest area under the wetlands, and the distribution of the coastal wetland and inland wetland, the proportion of the coastal wetland and inland wetlands. So read about wetlands. It has been asked in mains also. The definition of wetlands and how do you classify a wetland? What are the uses of wetlands? Then the 47th question: which of the following crops? Consider the following crops of India: groundnut, sesame, pearl millet. Which of the above are predominantly rain-fed crops? So you have to learn about the crops and the conditions in which they grow, that they can ask directly. So learn about the Kharif crops, Rabi crops, and Zaid crops, and all other individual crops. So Google search about groundnut and see what are the conditions in which they can grow and what are the states. If there is any state which grows predominantly groundnut, learn about that, and also other crops also, pearl millet and sesame. So millets is in the news recently, so learn about millets, the benefits of millets and the conditions to grow millet. Then when you travel in Himalayas, you will see the following: deep gorges, U-turn river courses, parallel mountain ranges, steep gradients causing landsliding. In 2011, they talked about U-turn. They gave the example that there are 3 rivers that originate in the Tibet, and Brahmaputra takes a U-turn, and why that U-turn is there. So again, that was a question that can be related to this question also. So again, they have asked about the evidences. So earlier they asked about the evidence for the expansion of the universe, and now they are asking the evidence for Himalayas being young fold mountains. So evolution and evidences of geographical features are important. So they had asked about the evidence for the evolution or the expansion of universe. So here they are asking the evidence for Himalayas being young fold mountains. So these evidences or evolution of things are important. Next question is 49th. Normally, the temperature decreases with the increase in the height of the Earth's surface because the atmosphere can be heated upwards only from the Earth's surface. There is no moisture in the upper atmosphere. The air is less dense in the upper atmosphere. Again, atmosphere is important. Layers of atmosphere is important. You have to learn about the functions and special features. Learn about the atmosphere and the features of it, properties of the layers of atmosphere. The stratosphere, ionosphere, all those. Next, 50th question. The acidification of oceans is increasing. Why is the phenomenon a cause of concern? So in 2011, they asked about salinization of soil and the concerns or the effects of salinization of soil. Here they are talking about acidification of oceans and why it is a concern. So again, you have to learn about all this. Again, learn about what is acidification, how is it caused, what are the causes of acidification, and how are they impacting humans. So here, if you look into the options, they talked about the growth and survival of calcareous phytoplanktons will be adversely affected. So you have to learn what is this calcareous phytoplanktons. The growth and survival of coral reefs will be adversely affected. You have to learn about coral reefs. What is coral reefs? What are the uses of coral reefs? For example, they have asked about the benefits of mangroves for the coastal ecosystem. They can also ask the benefits of coral reef for the coastal ecosystem. And then they have talked about phytoplankton larvae and cloud seeding. They have talked about cloud seeding. You need to learn what is cloud seeding, what are the chemicals used for cloud seeding, and formation of clouds. So ocean acidification is an important topic. Read about the ocean acidification, how it is caused, and how it is affecting the environment. And it's, for example, when you go deeper into the options, you have to learn about phytoplanktons, coral reefs, and then cloud seeding. And coral reefs are important. You have to learn the distributions of it. What are the threats that are there for the coral reefs? Geographical distribution, the mapping part. You have to learn about what is coral reef, different types of coral reefs, there are different types of coral reefs and the uses of coral reef. Next question is 51st question. Again, this is a based question. In India, other than ensuring public funds are used efficiently and for intended purpose, what is the importance of the CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General? So again, public finance is important. Bills, different types of bills is important. Fiscal policy is important. Current account deficit, what are the steps that the government is taking to reduce the current account deficit? And the functions, you have to read about CAG. What are the powers and the functions and the articles that are related to CAG in the Constitution? Now, in the options, you can again take a hint. They've talked about national emergency, financial emergency, learn about the different kinds of emergency and the approval process. Then they have talked about public accounts committee, learn about different accounts committee of the different committees of the Constitution, in the Parliament that are formed. So your work is to read about fiscal policy, public funds, CAG, what are the functions of CAG, articles related to the CAG. There is a separate chapter for CAG. And then what is current account deficit, the steps taken to reduce the current account deficit, what if the current account deficit increases, what are the ill effects of current account deficit, and then the steps taken by the government to reduce current account deficit. And then from the options, you have to read about the president, and then national emergency, financial emergency, CAG reports on the execution of the projects or programs by the ministries are discussed by Public Accounts Committee. Learn about the different committees. So I hope this is clear. For this question, we'll go to the next question, 52nd. The endeavor of Janani Suraksha Yojana. Again, this is a yojana or the program or a scheme. You have to learn the purpose, beneficiaries, and the features of the scheme. So here they've again talked about why the program is started. So any recent schemes, you have to learn about the purpose, the beneficiaries, and the features here. I'll go to the next question. The Prime Minister of India at the time of his or appointment need not necessarily be the Member of Parliament. This is the Parliament, the Prime Minister chapter. Read about the Prime Minister's chapter and also the Parliament. The Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, whether they can be a minister without being a member, for how long can they be a minister. With reference to the next question, 54th, with reference to the Delimitation Act Commission, consider the following. So again, you have to read about the constitutional provisions regarding to the delimitation. Then the Delimitation Act 2002, you have to read about this. You have to read the procedure, powers, and in the constitution that they have. So again, here they have talked about with reference to the Delimitation Commission, consider the following statements. The orders of the Delimitation Commission cannot be challenged in a court, and they are laid in the Lok Sabha, they cannot be modified. So read about Delimitation Commission. Recently, the Delimitation Commission was related to, they had done some work for the Jammu and Kashmir delimitation. So go through that. Next is 55th question. Consider the following hotel and restaurants, motor transport undertakings, newspaper establishment, private medical institution. The employees of which of the following above can have social security cover under employee state insurance scheme. So 2021, there was a question on EPFO, who are eligible for this EPFO. So this question again is important. So read about the beneficiaries. Again, this is employee state insurance scheme. This is a scheme. You have to read about the beneficiaries, features, and the purpose. This question is about intended beneficiaries who are eligible for the benefits. You also have to read about the social security schemes that the government has taken, and read about the labor ministry. Go to the labor ministry and read about any steps that they have taken, and also read about EPFO. The next question is 56th. According to the Constitution of India, it is the duty of the President of India to cause to be laid before the Parliament which of the following. So again, you have to read about the President and then also the Governor. And here from the options, you have to read about Union Finance Commission. What is Union Finance Commission? The powers of, the duties of the Union Finance Commission, the structure of it, and the members of Union Finance Commission. Then again, Public Accounts Committee. They've asked about Public Accounts Committee. CAG, they've asked about CAG here. They can ask about Public Accounts Committee, and then National Commission for Scheduled Caste. So you have to read about National Commission for Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribe, and also OBC. So read about these things. Then 57th question. A deadlock between the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha calls for the joint sitting. So learn what is joint sitting, what is a deadlock. All these things are there in the Parliament chapter. And types of bill. Ordinary legislation, money bill, constitutional amendment bill. Read the difference of these three. What is the difference and how they are passed? And what are the relative powers between the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha? Then 58th, the role of district rural development agencies, DRDAs. So again, role and functions of it. The Ministry of Rural Development is associated with this. So read about DRDAs. This is important. And every district has this district rural development agency. Read about this. What are the functions of it and role and responsibilities of and who is the head? Who is the head? The 59th. Which of the following is or are among the fundamental duties of the citizens laid down in the Indian Constitution? Again, you have to identify which are the fundamental duties. So to identify fundamental duties, you have to remember, you have to by heart fundamental duties, DPSP, fundamental rights, preamble, articles, schedules, amendments. You have to remember all this. And then 60th question. What is the provision to safeguard the autonomy of the Supreme Court? Again, again they've asked here, what is the provisions that are there to safeguard the autonomy of Supreme Court? So learn about the Supreme Court chapter. That is very important. And also the powers of Supreme Court, original jurisdictions of the Supreme Court, original jurisdictions of the High Court, and any exceptional power that Supreme Court has, and all the articles related to the Supreme Court. And 61st question. To meet its rapidly growing energy demands, some opine that India should pursue research and development on thorium as the future fuel of nuclear energy. Future fuel of nuclear energy. In this context, what are the advantages does thorium hold over uranium? See, again, I've already talked so many times that they are asking the differences between close alternatives. So here thorium can be used instead of uranium. So these are alternatives. So they are asking difference between these two. So yesterday I told about nuclear thing. Anything nuclear is important. Nuclear reactors, nuclear technology, nuclear treaties, nuclear policy, nuclear plants, location of nuclear plants, nuclear energy, how energy is produced using nuclear fuels. And also you have to learn about hydrogen, energy produced through hydrogen. What is the difference between fission and fusion? And also the different treaties that are there. For example, in 2011, they talked about START treaty. There is also a treaty called SALT. So you have to learn these things. Again, thorium deposits and uranium deposits, location of this also is important. Thorium and uranium. Next question is 62nd question. How global warming, the increasing amount of carbon dioxide in the air is slowly raising the temperature of atmosphere because it absorbs. Again, they are talking about global warming. They are talking about CO2 and the functions of CO2. So you have to read about the functions of CO2, how the CO2 is increasing the temperature. And here they have talked about water vapor. In 2011, they asked about the properties of water. They have also talked about the ultraviolet part, that is electromagnetic spectrums part, and all the solar radiations and infrared part. So electromagnetic radiation spectrum is important here. And how carbon dioxide is increasing the global temperatures. Next question is 63rd question. Which of the following sets of elements was primarily responsible for the origin of life? Again, this is a question of the evolution of universe or life. So they have asked about the evolution of universe. They have asked about the evolution of life here. So they are saying which of the elements were important. The evolution of life, universe, planets, physical features like continent, oceans, and mountains, and evidences of the evolution are important. For example, they can ask how does the plateau region was formed? How was black soil formed? Why is Gondwana land important? What is Gondwana land? What is Pangaea? So all these are important. Next is 64th question. What are the reasons for the people's resistance to the introduction of BT brinjal? So again, biotechnology related stuff, BT brinjal, genetically modified plant species or crops. So read about the ill effects of it, concerns, the technology, the regulators, the genetic appraisal GAEC appraisal committee, GAC or GAC. That is important. Here they have talked about how British brinjal is created. So read about how they are created and what is terminator seeds. What are the concerns of it? And also see again, this is about biodiversity also. So they had asked about the National Biodiversity Authority. Again, you have to go through this, like how does the biodiversity is ensured or saved in, protected in India, and what are the organizations that are involved in the protection of biodiversity. And here read about terminator seeds. What is terminator seeds? How is British brinjal created? And what is the genome? So they have asked about genome sequencing and what are the uses of genome sequencing. If there are any new technologies in genome sequencing, read about that. And you also read about Human Genome Project, HGP. And read about what is genes and how it is useful. What are the functions of genes? Then the 65th question is, other than resistance to pest, what are the prospects for which genetically engineered plants have been created? So what is the purpose of it and how they are useful? Genetically engineered plants. So again, they have talked about genetically engineered crops and genetically engineered plants. They have been talking. You have to see, look for the regulation part and the technical part also, and how they are useful. Why the genetically engineered plants or the crops are useful to humans. And if there are any concerns, you should also read about the concerns. So here they have asked about the concerns. Next question, 66th question. Consider the following statements. The most effective contribution made by Dadabhai Naoroji to the cause of Indian national movement. Again, this is about important personalities and their contributions to India. You have to read about their contributions, about their books, about their magazines that they have established, or about their political parties or the organizations that they were part of. So Dadabhai Naoroji, Mahatma Gandhi, B.R. Ambedkar, and other prominent people, and their contribution. Next question is 67th. With reference to Drupad, one of the major traditions in India that has been kept alive for centuries, which of the following statements are correct? So this is about the music part. Read about this. This is about culture. So Gharana was already talked in this paper. So read about the different Gharanas. Read about the difference between, again, Hindustani music and Carnatic music. So whenever there is any close related concepts, read about the differences. Again, see here they have asked again difference. How do you distinguish between Kuchipudi and Bharatanatyam? Differences or difference between alternatives. So you have to learn about the differences. If there are any two technologies, any two things that are very close by, for example, antimatter and matter, CDs, DVD and Blu-ray disc, and Wi-Fi and Li-Fi, all these things are already, this thing has already been asked. So differences between two very close features can be asked. Next, 69th. With reference to the religious history of medieval India, the Sufi mystics were known to pursue which of the following practices? This is about Sufi mystics. Even before that, the most important thing that you have to take away from this question is they are asking questions regarding the religious history of medieval India. So the religious history of medieval India is important. Even if you are reading about medieval history, read about the medieval history, religious history of the medieval India and the society aspects of medieval India. Religion, culture, society of medieval India and ancient India. This is a clear indication that UPSC is giving you to read about religious history of medieval India. So whenever if you are going through the medieval history aspect, read the religious history of the medieval India and also about the Sufi saints. And what are the practices that they were doing? There were Sufi saints, there were Bhakti saints. So read about these people and what are the practices and famous people that were part of this movement. They can ask questions regarding this. Then Rowlatt Act they've asked directly about Rowlatt Act. Again, acts are important here. Read about the acts that were there. Again, from this question, you have to read about Khilafat movement and restrictions on press. There was a separate chapter in Spectrum about the press. Read about that. Then 71st question is the Lahore session of the Indian National Congress is very important. Again, if there is any important event in the history, especially in the modern history part, that becomes important, and what are the reasons why it was important. For example, here they were asked, they said the Congress passed a resolution demanding complete independence. There was a rift between extremists and moderates were resolved. The resolution was passed rejecting the two-nation theory. So go through these things, different sessions that were happened. The Congress sessions here in the last few pages of the Spectrum, you have the details of all the Congress sessions and who were the chairman or the head leading the sessions. And 72nd question, Lord Buddha's image is sometimes shown in the hand gesture called Bhumi Sparsha Mudra. And what does it symbolizes? So you have to learn about Lord Buddha's mudra, but you have to also learn about the Nataraja idol that was there, bronze statue of the Chola period. And also there were different symbols in the Nataraja statue also. Learn about those symbols. They may ask that. And also you can't forget this different mudras of Lord Buddha. Then 73rd, the religion of early Vedic Aryans was primarily of. Again, there was this question here. See, we had discussed here. Dharma and Rita depict a central idea of ancient Vedic civilization. Religion, literature, or anything about the nature of the society, about the Vedic civilizations or any civilization in the past. So here they have talked about the religion of early Vedic Aryans. Bhakti, image worship, yajnas, worship of nature and bhakti. So read about, whenever you are reading about ancient cultures, civilizations, read about the religion, culture, and societal aspects. I hope you are understanding the importance of previous year's analysis. I'm not going into the details of the why, what is the answer and the why, how to get the answers. I'm only concentrating on what are the focus areas that you have to focus. 74th question, which of the following statements are correct regarding Brahmo Samaj? So Brahmo Samaj was an organization, social reforms, organization related to the social reforms, and you have to know the details of it. And who were the head or who started the organizations. So whenever you are going through any organizations in modern history, you have to know what are the purpose of the organization and who started the organization. Again, here they are talking about the infallibility of Vedas. The Buddhism, Jainism philosophy also talked about, there was a question there, and there was also a statement, one of the statements that talked about whether they rejected the Vedas or not. So please give importance to this. 75th, Reserve Bank of India acts as the banker's bank. This would imply which of the following? So they are asking only in terms of banker's bank. What is the function of Reserve Bank as a banker's bank? What does this term mean? So you have to learn about RBI, the functions of RBI, the tools that RBI has, the powers, and how does the RBI get the powers? What is that? That is RBI Act. So learn about those statutory provisions that are there. Learn about the functions and the powers of RBI. So RBI is very important. You have to learn about the functions, powers, and the history of RBI. So here they have given that other banks retain their deposits with the RBI. RBI lends funds to commercial banks in times of the need. RBI advises commercial banks on monetary matters. So you have to learn about the different functions and the powers of the RBI. Just go to the RBI website and learn everything. It's very clearly given. What are the purposes and what is the RBI doing? Then 76th question, which of the following, under which of the following circumstances may capital gains arise? So this is a conceptual or an applied question. You have to know what is capital gains, and then they have given examples. So you have to identify where the capital gains is applicable. So this is a conceptual and an applied economics question. So whenever you are learning any concept read it thoroughly. If you don't understand, Google search it or search it in YouTube if there is an explanation. And once you are clearly understood, you'll be able to solve such applied questions. Then 77th, which of the following measures would result in the increase in money supply in the economy? Again, this is related to the monetary policy that is conducted by the RBI. Who is responsible for monetary policy? RBI is responsible for the monetary policy. So again, that is a function of RBI. Powers of RBI, history of RBI, and tools that are there for RBI to conduct its work. There are different tools that the RBI has. You have to read about that. Which of the following measures would result in an increase in money supply? So you have to find out, you have to know how the money supply is increased, how the money supply is decreased. For example, if the bank rate is increased, bank rate is decreased, you have to know how, what will happen. So there was a question in 2011 regarding bank rate. So again, they have asked the question on monetary policy and how money supply can be increased or decreased. So this is a conceptual question. You have to read whenever you are reading the basic static part, read this. Then 78th question. Which of the following would indicate foreign direct investment? So there was a question in 2011 regarding what is the difference between FDI and FII. So if you had gone through those details here, I mean in 2011, you could have answered this question in 2012. This is a 2012 paper. So they have asked about what is an FDI. Which of the following would include foreign direct investment in India? So go through this and also read about the foreign investments. There is a concept called participatory notes, and there is also concepts called round tripping, tax avoidance, double tax tax treaties and all. So read about that, and also FDI and FIS. And 49th question. The price of any currency in the international market. So yesterday we had talked about IMF. So there is World Bank here, and they are talking about how a currency in the international market is decided and what are the factors that impact the price of any currency. This is about the factors. So read about that, import exports and how imports exports would have an impact on the currency. And also here regarding any stability, for example, the stability of the concerned government, economic potential of the country in the question, demand for the goods and services provided by the country are concerned. So read about the currency part, and we had talked about IMF and special drawing rights of IMF. Read about World Bank, its functions, its structure, and the steps that are taken, the members of World Bank, and now alternatives for the World Bank is also there. So read about those alternatives also. Next, 80th question is, what is the basic aim of lead bank scheme? So read about these schemes, the intended beneficiaries of its scheme, and why that scheme was introduced, and who are the intended beneficiaries. Then the 81st question, assessment of land revenue on the basis of the nature of soil and the quality of crops, use of mobile cannons in the warfare, cultivation of tobacco and red chilies. Which of the above were introduced into India by English? So again, as I've already talked, land revenue assessment is important. And if they have introduced some new things like mobile cannons, warfare, tobacco, red chilies, learn about these things. If there are new crops or new products that were introduced in India by the British or by the Mughals, whoever it is, learn about those things. This is not just relevant to English. You can change anything here. You can make it Mughals, or you can make it any other foreign. Instead of English, you can add Dutch here or the French. So be ready for such questions, or Portuguese. It is second question with reference to guilds, shrainis of ancient India that played a very important role in the country's economy. Which of the following statements are correct? So you have to learn what is guilds, what are the types of guilds which was there, if there was any famous guild that was there, and what are the powers of the guilds. So you have to learn what is guild, what is a shraini, and what are the powers of it, and whether they had any judicial power. So even now there are guilds, there are organizations for a particular type of sectors. So even in the ancient India, there was this guild. So read about those guilds. And then again, the distribution of powers between center and state. See this part, devolution. I'm talking again and again, devolution is important in the ancient world also and in the modern world also. Devolution of powers and the money. These things are important, so read about this devolution part. The distribution of power between center and state in the Indian Constitution is based on the scheme provided in which act. So all these acts are important. Read about all these acts. Parliament Acts 1909, 1919, 1935, 1947. And if any present feature, the Constitution has adopted something from any of these acts, that becomes also important. Then, despite having large reserves of coal, see again I've told about coal. It was there in 2011, it was there in 2022 also. Coal Controller of India. Coal is a very important topic. You have to learn about coal, the types of coal, the regulators of coal, the organizations that is responsible for coal mining, the legislations, the acts that is responsible for the coal mining, the coal safety, and any new technologies in coal-powered power plants, and also the coal mines in geographical locations, in geographical mapping. The important mines of coal mines are important. And nature of Indian coal. Despite having large reserves of coal, why does India import millions of tons of coal? So this is about the nature of coal that is available in India. It is the policy of India to save its own coal reserve for the future. Most of the power plants based in India are coal-based and they're not able to get sufficient supplies of coal. Steel companies need large quantity of coking coal, which has to be imported. See, this is about coal policy of India. You have to read about the coal policy. Go to the coal ministry website. Read about that. There is somebody called nominated authority. Read about that. Coal Controller Organization was asked, and Labor Ministry is actually responsible for the safety of the coal mines and the people who are involved in coal mining. So read about that. Do the extensive research, types of coal, what is coal, how coal is formed, and what are the alternatives that the government is taking, and also what is coal gasification, syngas, coal emissions. So in 2011, they had asked about coal emissions. So for example, well, in coal, this coal power plants, fly ash is generated, and this fly ash is used for roads. So they had asked previous year, they had asked about biochar. There is something called biobitumen. And recently our transport minister has talked about biobitumen, which can be produced. So go and read about biobitumen. The biobitumen can be produced through the stubbles, the plant wastages that are there. So 85th question. A person stood alone in the desert in the dark night, and which was situated 5 kilometers east of the point where he had where he was standing. He had no instrument to find the direction, but he located the pole star. So learn about pole star or the North Polaris, North Pole, the most convenient way to reach the villages. So read about the North Pole concept. What is North Pole? And here it is conceptual one, applied one. Then I'll go to the next 86th question. Recently, there has been a concern over short supply of the group of elements called rare earths. So they are asking what is rare earth metals. Read about rare earth metals. Read about them. What is the rare earth metal? Why is it important? And do we have any mines or any reserves of rare earth metals? And the distribution of rare earth metals across the globe. So why aspect? We have talked about the why aspect here, the distribution aspect here, and who are the largest producers of the rare earth metals. So we have to learn what is rare earth metal and examples of rare earth metals. examples of rare earth metals. And then 87th question, consider the following protected areas: Bandipur, Bhitarkanika, Manas, Sundarbans. Which of the above are declared tiger reserves? Again, the tiger reserves are important. The locations, and even currently the tiger census were released, so tiger reserves are important. Read about this: Bandipur, Bhitarkanika, Manas, Sundarbans. Google search this, read about them. What are the features, special features, geographical locations of it, whether it is close to any river, what are the specific animals that are there, any unique species which is available in these areas. Read about that. And even tiger reserves, for example, to declare tiger reserves, the process or the procedure that is used to declare a tiger reserve, and what is the difference between a tiger reserve and a national park. In a tiger reserve, a national park, and a wildlife sanctuary. So you read about this, and also this becomes important in the mapping of geography. Next is 88th question. Consider the following statement: the duration of monsoon decreases from South India to North India. The amount of rainfall in the northern plains to India decreases from east to west. This is the distribution of monsoon. You have to learn about the distribution of monsoon, the causes of monsoon, what is monsoon, and any threat to the monsoon. For example, La Nina and El Nina. La Nina and El Nina. You have to read about this. Monsoon, the distribution of the monsoons, causes of the monsoon, any threats to the monsoon, La Nina and El Nina. Then, which of the following characteristics is the characteristics of the tropical savanna region? So you have to read about the different characteristics, climatic characteristics, climate of the regions. Tropical savanna region, equatorial forest, and also other different regions of the world. This you can find it in geography textbooks. Then, in which of the following category of protected areas in India are local people not allowed to collect and use biomass? See, I've already talked about this in the previous paper also. Biosphere reserves, national parks, wetlands declared under Ramsar Convention, wildlife sanctuaries. So you have to learn where and what activities are allowed or banned. What are the acts that are there, and what is the difference between these three, and the locations of these places. Ramsar site location, wetlands also is important. Wildlife sanctuary locations also important. National parks and biosphere reserves. Here tiger reserves are there. Then there is elephant reserves. So read about that, and read about the activities that are allowed or not allowed inside these places. Next question is: consider the following kinds of organisms: bat, bee, and bird. Which of the following are pollinating agents? Here again, these are all the natural beings that are solving a problem. For example, pollination. So you have to learn about the basic things. So you would find this in basic NCERT textbooks, science textbooks. Read about that. So just Google search bat, bee, or bird, and there is currently bees being threatened due to the excessive use of mobiles and all. So read about, and fertilizers. So read about this extinction and the steps that are taken by the government to reduce this extinction. 92nd, which of the following groups of animals belong to the category of endangered species? IUCN category status is important. Read about that. Read about all these animals: great Indian bustard, musk deer, red panda, Asiatic wild ass, Kashmir stag, cheetal, great Indian bustard, snow leopard, swamp deer, rhesus monkey and sarus crane, lion-tailed macaw, blue bull, Hanuman langur, and cheetal. So read about these animals individually and their distribution, which is there. Read about the distributions, importance of this, and even if it is their habitats. Then 93rd question. Consider the following statements. If there are no phenomena of capillary, again, this thing was talked about in the salinization part in previous years, in 2011 paper. Read about the salinization aspect. If there was no phenomenon of capillary action, what would have happened? So this is also a science question. And this is also a part of the basic phenomenon that plants use. Next, 94th, the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment describes the following major categories of ecosystem. Services: provisioning, supporting, regulating, preserving, and cultural. Which of the following is a supportive service? Again, this is available in the static part. If you read any environment book, you would find the static part of this. So what are the functions that come under the supportive services? You have to also learn about what are the functions that come under provisioning part, supporting part, and regulating part, preserving and cultural part. So read about all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts, services. Then again, they have asked about the difference between Oryx and Chiru. Again, differences between any two close things. So learn about this and learn about these animals and their habitats. If they are threatened, go through that also. Next question is 96th question. Which of the following can be threats to biodiversity of, again, this is a very important topic, biodiversity. I've already talked twice or thrice about biodiversity. What are the threats to biodiversity? Read about biodiversity. The second question, I think, was National Biodiversity Authority. Read about these authorities. What are the steps that are taken to counter these threats, and what are the threats that are there? Again, global warming, invasion of alien species. What you have to learn, what is alien species and what are the kinds of alien species that are there, both plants and animal, plant and animal alien species, and the promotion of vegetarianism. So learn about the biodiversity. Biodiversity is a very important topic. Next is 97th question. Which of the following are naturally found in India? Go through these individual animals and find out whether they are available or not, naturally in India, and also their habitats. And also the national wildlife sanctuaries or national parks or biosphere reserves where these animals are present. Next is 98th question. Consider the following agricultural practices: counterbunding, relay cropping, zero tillage. All the agricultural practices are important. Anything that is used, the practices that are used to improve the efficiency are important. Improve efficiency. There can be new age technologies or new technologies or old ways of doing agriculture. So learn about these things, do Google search, learn about these individual things and learn how these are beneficial to agriculture. In the context of global climate change, which of the following helps in carbon sequestration or storage in the soil? Learn about carbon sequestration. There was a question about carbon credits in 2011. Learn about carbon credits, learn about carbon sequestration, learn about carbon trading of carbon credits. 99th, what would happen if phytoplanktons of an ocean is completely destroyed for some reason? See again, we talked about what is phytoplanktons, what are the uses of it, and how is it beneficial to the world, how it is beneficial. So phytoplanktons, just like phytoplanktons, they can ask about coral reefs. They've already asked about mangroves. So they have asked about what is the ocean acts as a carbon sink. Food chains in the oceans would be adversely affected. The density of ocean water would drastically decrease. Again, I would not go into detail of how to answer this question. I'm only directing you to the topics that are important. So phytoplanktons, what is phytoplankton? What is its uses? What is how it is beneficial to the world? And also related to this, read about coral reefs, the benefits of coral reefs, the benefits of mangroves to the society and to the humans. The last question is vultures, which used to be very common in Indian subcontinents, are rarely seen. This is attributed to. So vultures are getting extinct. So you have to understand why they are getting extinct. Again, bees are also getting extinct. So bees are getting extinct. So again, you have to read about why the extinction is happening. So if any of the species, beneficial species are extinct, and you also have to learn about why the vulture is important. in what part of the food chain does it fit? Food chain and food web. So vultures is very important for I mean, cleaning of the environment. So all these organisms are very important. So if there is any destructions happening or there is any threat to these organizations or organisms, you have to learn about that, and also the steps that are taken by the government. Steps taken by the government to save this, and also if there are any international efforts to save this animals. And also biodiversity has also been asked, and also about the species. They have given these animals here. Normally what they do is they can give a characteristics of an animal, and they can ask what is that animal. So you have to learn about these animals. Don't neglect these things. You have to learn about the characteristics, the habitats, where they are there, what is the nature of these animals, and what are the kinds of habits that these animals have, and then they can give a description and they can ask which animal is that. Agricultural practices are very important. New age agricultural practices and practices that are helpful for counter global warming. So read about this. We have completed 2012. We'll be doing this for till 2022. I hope these sessions are useful. If you have any queries, you can ask, or else we'll end the session so that you can continue with your prelims preparation. So thank you for coming and attending the sessions. These topics are repeating, and these are the major focus areas of UPSC. So please do a bit of research on these topics, and whenever you are going through the static portions or the current affairs part, give main importance to these things. Thanks for coming. We'll end the session here, and if possible, we'll have another session for the next 2013. Thanks. Thank you. And have a good night.